welcome to my office. With the current situation, it makes videos a bit trickier to film, but that's no excuse. I have no great place to record audio right now, so I literally threw a comforter up as well as stacked my bouldering pads to try to dampen the echo. Seems to be working. It's kind of a fun, creative challenge to figure out. Just trying to make the best of this situation. But with that, let's talk about VSCO. So VSCO is actually the only editing app I have on my iPhone. I don't use Lightroom Mobile or whatever else the kids are using these days. VSCO is just very simple. So for me, that means I work a bit faster and I'm able to get something I'm really pleased with in an efficient way. For me, I find that less options is actually the best option. If I'm going to be editing iPhone on it, I'm going to be shooting JPEG in the Moment app and just editing those photos within VSCO. And the other ones would be if I already edited some on my laptop in Lightroom and I don't want to go through Photoshop and do all this color casting on it, I can just quickly put it into VSCO and find something I like. With that, let's get into it. We'll do this photo. It's a 35mm film shot I shot in Hawaii back in 2017. I already did some touch-ups to it in Lightroom, so we'll just get into it here. First thing I always do is I hit the borders and I just add a border around it just to see it against a white background. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna crop it 4:3. I just think it's a little bit tighter. So that's a good frame there. I'm gonna first come into exposure, bump it up just a bit. The first thing I'm noticing is her skin there is a little green in the shadow, so I'll fix that in a second. Add a little contrast there, add a little saturation. I'll go ahead and fix that skin toning. We'll try skin tone first, sometimes it might work. You can see what it's doing there, it's targeting skin type colors. We'll just take it down slightly. From there I'll hit white balance, add a little temperature to it, make it a little warmer, and just try to get that green out a little more by hitting the tint up a bit. And anytime you do these changes, you can see before and afters individually, so you can hit exposure, and I'm just holding it down, and you're seeing what that individual change is doing on this tab. We could try adding a split tone in. It's very heavy if you just do it like that, so we're gonna bring it very subtle. Maybe add orange in the shadow or actually let's try adding red in the shadow, just to further delete those greens, have it more of a natural skin tone. I don't want to overdo it on this one because I've already edited most of it, did all the forefront work on Lightroom and my computer, so I'm going to come to all the presets here. I do have VSCO X, so I have all those film emulation. If you have VSCO X, you can use those. If you don't, you can just try the ones you have and find something you like. I'm just going to click through these. Ooh, I like that, but it's really harsh, so maybe just bump it a little right there. Mess around with the character. And just kind of wiggle things around until it looks decent. I think I like that. Let me see. Kind of flattens it. It's very subtle. I could maybe come into exposure and just bump that up a slight bit. And cool. I think that's pretty solid. Really the only thing I might do is come in here and add a little more warmth. A lot of my photos are more warmer than they are cooler, so it's definitely more of a bias, but yeah, I think that's pretty solid. Here's a before, here's an after, and I like to edit against that white background. Just you can just see the tonal differences a bit more against the white versus the black. At least for me, that's how I see it. So yeah, but I do take off the border and I export it, save to camera roll. So the next photo is one of my friend Claire. This one was shot on the iPhone 11 Pro. I shot it in the Moment app, and you could totally get these same results in the iPhone's native app. I just find the Moment app is really efficient. I was probably shooting auto the entire time on that shoot when I was shooting on the iPhone, and the only thing I would really change was that exposure value dial, and I would just move it up and down to make it darker and lighter. So with that, let's get into the edit. All right, first things first, add the border, and then I'm gonna crop it down a bit. All right, that's a solid frame there. I'm gonna just push the exposure up a bit, add a little bit of contrast, add a little bit of saturation to it. Actually, I'm gonna wait on that. I'm gonna add warmth to the overall image. So I'm gonna go to skin tone now and just see what's happening. As you can tell too, look at the grass there, it's affecting that because that is technically close to the color of skin. Not a huge deal in this case, but I'm gonna just bring down, make it red a little bit. Just looking at her skin, not the grass. I'm gonna come to split toning and add some warmth to the shadows maybe. It might fade it a bit too much though, so I just wanna be careful. I just wanna make her skin a little more warmer and also not keep it so red. Just finding a nice balance there. come back to the contrast and add a little bit more, and then I think I can push the exposure some. Solid so far. Cool. Before, after, already looking a bit better there. I'm gonna come into HSL panel. What this does is it just targets specific colors. So if I hit the blue, you can just target the blues, the saturation, then you can do hue, and then the luminance, which just makes it brighter and darker. I want to be careful on these right now because if I go into the presets will definitely affect the colors. I'll probably go light on them. If anything, I'm probably going to just focus on her skin tones right now. I'm just going to bring the saturation up a bit on the orange. It's probably targeting it more as red, maybe. It's not really targeting well. Yellow is probably the most prominent one. Yeah, definitely yellow. It's still not much, but I guess this would be a situation where the Lightroom mobile app would be a bit more helpful. Cool, so I'm gonna keep it subtle like that for now. And then I'm gonna come into presets here. I'm gonna just look at these for this photo tab. I always just hit that tab first, look at them. I like that G9. It's like it's a warm portrait. That's literally my style. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that actually. So G9, we're gonna start at 0 and just slowly slide it up. And it gets a little too much like right here. So I'm gonna dial it back into right about there. One thing to check too is just make sure your brightness is all the way up. That'll really affect how the photo's being viewed on the screen, and you'll look at it later in an export and be like, what was I doing? So with that, I'm gonna come back in here and bump the exposure back up again. A little contrast in there, not a ton. If I had too much, you can kind of see like right in here, it's getting a bit too contrasty and blotchy. Blotchy is the right word. It gets a little blotchy in there. So I want to keep it pretty subtle. I don't even know if that changed anything, but whatever, we're going with it. From here, maybe add a little more warmth into those split tones. I'm gonna come in here to the HSL panel. I'm gonna hit the blues up just a little bit in the luminance. Mess with the hue a bit, saturate that. I'm gonna come in here to the orange and just add a little bit of saturation so it affects her skin a bit. I'm gonna come back into contrast and just lower it a tad bit. Maybe bring up the sharpness a bit. Overall saturation maybe too. Yeah, there's a small bump there. And then from there, come back into the skin tone. It just feels a bit too heavy on the red, so I'm gonna just bring it back into the greens a little bit. It's looking pretty solid. I'm gonna do one more touch of warmth. Then I'm gonna come into the HSL panel and hit the yellows and just bump up the luminance of them. I'm kind of just looking at the grass right now. And then again, come into the blues and just see if bumping that up helps a bit. Cool, I'm gonna call that good. So here's the before, here's the after, take off the border, and export. The next one is from that same shoot. It's not so much a portrait, but it has a lot of varied light going on. I was actually editing this one a few days ago, and I ended up just leaving it black and white. I thought it looked really good, and it really just made Claire, the subject, just stick out so much. But we're gonna try to get a color one here that I'm satisfied with. First things first, going to add the border, go into adjustments. Right down at that right corner, you see there's a little bit of horizon that got in there, so just editing that out. First, I'm gonna add some warmth in, just like that, and a little bit of red as well in the tint, or I guess purple in the tint. Go to exposure and just bump that up some, and then let's add some contrast in. It's already shaping up just a little bit. Add overall saturation to it. I wanna be careful with this because I know that the preset I use will probably be pretty effective on the colors on this. Proceed with caution. I'm gonna go to split toning here, and I'm gonna target the highlights. I wanna see what these colors are looking like. The one thing I'm not fond of is that any of the highlights is also affecting the blanket, so I just have to be careful on what I choose. I think I'm gonna go with this kind of creamy one. I was literally titled cream, I never knew that. And put it at like 2.1. Let's bump the exposure up some to like right there, and then again add that contrast in. I'm wanting her to pop out a lot, like that black and white edit, she just popped out a ton, and same with like these textures on the blanket right there. So I'm really just editing for the subject here. So I'm gonna go into skin tone. This blanket is very much a skin tone. As you can see, it'll change quite a lot if I change it. So I'm gonna just take it down and make it red a little bit. Add a little bit more warmth and tint. Just keeping it subtle. And I think I might try coming into the blues here and just lightening that up. That looks good there at like 1.6, and then hue maybe, I want to keep it more purple to keep it warm, so I'm just going to push it slightly up to 0.6. That's before, that's an after. Pretty solid so far. I'm going to come into, check out the for this photo and see what we got going. Pretty heavy on these. I do like that though. Like, that is kind of cool how it makes the whole thing almost red in that. Oh, this is the same one we used on that previous one. Oh, that's funny. Dang, that's actually so sick. I would have never thought of that too. I would have probably kept it similar to this, just literally going full send and making it very tinted reddish purple. Like, that's pretty mad. I'm gonna do that, and then I'm actually gonna come in here and hit the blues and illuminate that, desaturate it a little bit. And I'm gonna come back into G9, do that, and then maybe I'm just gonna test this out, come back to white balance and take it more green just to see. I keep going X on those, so I'll like do this and just test things out, and I'll just hit X to not apply them. But yeah, I really like that overall. Like, that's kind of sick, just keeping it super warm. And then last thing, I think I'm gonna try just exposure up, because I like the really light feel of it, and then contrast it a bit more. So that's before, that's after. Add some sharpness to bring out that texture. I'm gonna try clarity as well just to see what it does. Add a touch of clarity, I don't wanna overdo it, but that draws you into the subject Claire a bit more. And I'm just gonna take my crop a little bit over this away. That looks sick. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that, honestly. Last thing I might do is just mess around in the blues. One thing to keep in mind is when I'm targeting the blue, like, there's obviously not much blue in here, but what it's referring to is that before shot. It's referring to, quote unquote, the raw image, the original blue, if that makes sense. Cool, so that's solid. Last thing I could do is probably come back into the HSL and just mess around with saturation and luminance of this blanket. I think there's a lot that can be done. Seems like red's not the case. It's probably just more orange and yellow. Yeah, definitely very much yellow. I mean, it's kind of sick to like full send it, like go way up. I don't know if that's overdone though. I'm gonna just see it against full white. That's pretty solid. The one thing I'm not super keen on, and it's probably something I would only notice, is this top part right here. It just feels a little, you can kind of see it there. It's a bit blotchy. It almost looks like a vignette, and I just want to like remove that. But that's kind of what the nice part about it is. You just keep it simple. Like, it's probably something no one else would notice, and I'm not wasting time on it. And that's really why I like editing in VSCO. Just keeping it efficient. Cool. So there's the before, and there's the after. Take off the white border and export. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys learned a little something from this video, and make sure to do all those things that people ask you to do at the end of the YouTube videos. It really helps me out. I'll also be putting a few more of those VSCO edits up on my Patreon as well. Before you guys go though, I want to talk about something I'm up to during the duration of this quarantine that I think is really cool. It's free and gonna bring you a lot of value. Don't touch that remote. So most of you watching my channel probably do photography to some extent, and if you're like me, I'm going crazy being stuck inside. So in an effort to foster community and create connection between all of us who are isolated right now, we started the Circle. And when I say we, I'm talking about me and the team at Strollworks. This is not a sales pitch. Alex hit me up last week when this whole social isolation thing really started to become a thing. He proposed this idea of creating this forum where anyone can join in and, yeah, like I said, literally just connect with other creatives who are isolated right now. Not only is it Alex and I, but it's also previous teachers of other workshops Strollworks has put out. We're making the Circle just to have a place where we can encourage everyone, not just us the teachers, but everyone in the community, to stay in the right mindset during these weird times. I don't know about you, but I'm getting a little stir crazy. I pretty much haven't left my house for like a week and a half. And the Circle, like I said, is totally free. You can check it out in the link below. So hope to see you there. And yeah, that's it. Stay stoked during these times. And shout out to all the Ravenclaws out there. here.